Speaking of cheat codes, I have a question regarding your opinion about the AI technology and how
Yeah.
they're like massively conquering the market. There are already a lot of AIs, and I believe that the recent strike in LA also include the voice actors.
Yeah. The SAG-AFTRA kind of like strike. I mean, part of that whole agreement was the whole kind of AI thing, and then there's still. I mean, even now that strike has technically ended, but the agreement that was kind of like reached was a bit like, eh, it doesn't really safeguard anybody a great deal. So that's up in the air, and that's something that we have to be aware about, and it's something that we need to be. I mean, I think regardless of voice actors, first and foremost, it's just something that we all need to kind of like. There needs to be more legislation, like internationally. Like, if I can clone your voice in less than 30 seconds, I can get away with some pretty criminal shit very, very easily. Or confuse people that you know or people that you love that it's you on the end of the phone and get the identification detail. Like, first and foremost, that whole aspect to it, that just needs to be addressed. So somehow it needs to be addressed because those tools are so readily available for free or for close to being free as well. So it's like, whether you agree with embracing this technology or not, it's kind of like, there's barely anything in place right now to mitigate against this. So that's one issue, which is too big for someone as uneducated as me to explore or say anything articulate other than criminal stuff is bad and stop pretending to be other people. Bad too. But from a voice acting perspective as well, yeah, obviously it changes the whole thing. I have tried to be proactive as opposed to just waiting. In terms of like, I've talked to various different voiceover AI providers, essentially, whilst they're figuring out what space there is and what use there is, and is there a use? Is there a business model behind the tech that they've created? Because at the moment, a lot of them are kind of like creating this stuff, not exactly in a void, but they're tech companies that are building this product, but then they've got to bring it to market.
Yeah.
And so what's the marketplace? Where do they sell it? How do they sell it? How do they market it? Well, they need investment. So you're seeing a lot of these AI companies being bought by Spotify or other companies, either the tech or the entire company wholesale, or they're hoping that they're going to get investors on board so that they can take it long term. But I'll be honest, like I've built an AI voice with a company who kind of tried to make it work as a viable option and are kind of like parking it now.
Whoa.
Because they're like, we tried creating a kind of marketplace and kind of selling this kind of stuff and things, and like the level of interest is like, there's interest, but not to make it worth our while on a business sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, because it's not big enough. Because, and I think this is another thing that a lot of AI voice companies are realizing, is that like, if you say you can generate thousands of words for free or $5 or $10, then sure, but it means that your bottom line to actually make a profit on any of this is really fucking tough. It's really fucking tough, as well as the whole ethical question. So there's a lot of figuring out in terms of use cases and stuff. So I'm still in dialogue, and there is an AI version of my voice, which is not publicly available to everybody, but is in certain test cases and has been used in certain things as well. And it's still, I'm not trying to push it for any kind of like results, but I'm trying to have like very honest dialogues about, this is the stuff that I would agree to, and this is the stuff that I need control on, and these are the reasons why. Because quite often they don't have any experience or knowledge of the voiceover sector or the business or anything. So therefore it becomes our responsibility, or other organizations who represent voice actors' responsibility, to educate them at the same time. And it's such a kind of like a hair trigger issue. As soon as you mention AI voices, people think of it rightly as a threat. They get very defensive, and it can be easy for it to become a whole pile-on. if you're trying to say like, we're talking with, or, there was a recent, tweet about like SAG-AFTRA, the US American Union, acting union, reaching a first agreement with an AI voice company. And unsurprisingly, X was full of like really negative posts non-stop for, hours and hours and hours and hours about it. Whereas in it was actual fact, just like they'd made a basic agreement to have quite a good kind of like have very set terms in terms of where the voice could be used, where it could not be used. These were the set rates, that they were kind of in line with what human rates would be. So all like in theory, whether you agree with, I'd like to have an AI version of my voice in the first place or not, was quite a healthy step. So yeah, there's a lot to navigate. And I think there's the potential for AI to help voice actors in a lot of things. If I just recorded an 8-hour audiobook that I finished and submitted this morning, I'm sure there are mistakes in those 8 hours that I've done.
Yeah.
Would it be much easier for me having, it's got all of my performance though, all of my emotions and all of my inflections and all of that kind of stuff. If it's just like, you said these 5 words wrong, rather than me having to go manually back and spend an hour or two making sure that I get it exactly how I sounded on that day and all of that kind of stuff, can I just kind of like literally do a kind of audio version of find and replace all to those things, and it just be done like that, so that the client ends up getting the perfect recording quicker, and I don't have to sweat about it. It's just automatically done. Yeah, I'll be down with that. Or, there's AI stuff that can, change certain words, or, so that you record a commercial in one way, but a lot of advertisement is getting hyper personalized. So it's saying the person's voice that it's speaking to. You get an AI to do the person's name, and everything else is the human performance. So there's a kind of a hybrid model there. That kind of stuff makes more sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of working with big companies, can you or your agent like top up the agreement that SAG has with some extra points? For example, when it comes, for example, for AI, because we're talking about the AI, and some sort of company can come with some default properties contract agreement that was confirmed by SAG, but there was some points that you personally want to include. Is this some sort of thing that we can consider it as a usual one? So I mean, the actor can add on top of the contract some minor points. For example, I don't want my voice to be used, for example, in some sort of scenes or etc.
Yeah, no, literally, there's something very specifically that exists. So the National Association for Voice Actors, or NAVA, which is a US-based organization, but actually can represents voice actors internationally. They've created, one of the things that they've created on their website is an AI rider. So it's literally, it's kind of like a list of sub-clauses that you could stick into a contract. So they give you the template, and then you can adjust it depending on how you want to change it. But yeah, it's because you want to have control over where the voice is being used, for how long it's being used for, and the relevant form of compensation as well. Whether or not it's going to be used towards any other kind of machine learning or not. All of these kind of things you would want some level of control over, because I know there are quite a few people that have been screwed over by AI versions of their voice that they can't control. Is like they recorded a project like 10 years ago or 5 years ago thinking this will never be an issue. I'm never going to have the presence of mind to put an AI rider into the, caveat into these contracts, because it was never an issue before. And then that company has been taken over. They've still, technically got the recordings and it's theirs. And then they've created an AI version of that person's voice, which is technically a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And that's tricky, because obviously that AI voice can say nasty things, which, could completely destroy your career. But also, from a basic point of view, it can just create a normal conflict of interest. If I'm voicing X car company, but then the AI version of my voice is, directly voicing something for a rival, then I'm screwed over. The person who's paying me, who's hiring real Chris for that commercial will go like, your voice is associated with our direct rivals. We're not going to pay you that money, and we'll take it when we're not going to do this campaign with you. At which point, I'm screwed over and there's an issue. So yeah, I mean, that's where the kind of like control and compensation from a business point of view is really important. Yeah.